Welcome to the story room. I have a terrifying tale for you called Burn. 9 a.m. I awoke to a noise, sounding like a low crackling sound. I dismissed this and fell back asleep. 10 a.m. I awake again by my alarm. I'm writing this journal for the purpose only to keep me sane from the terror upon me. 5 p.m. Off from work. On my way home, I turned on the radio and again heard the crackling sound, with what sounded like a low mumble underneath it, muttering incomprehensible words. The constant attempts at contacting is starting to drive me crazy. 9 p.m. During dinner tonight, I heard laughing, chuckling, almost cackling. I couldn't take it any longer. I screamed at it. I screamed and screamed until my voice gave out. I collapsed to the rags in which I caught a bed as it came upon me. I finally saw its terrible face. It was the last thing I saw under the blaring light and heat. As the demon said, I burn. The passage just stated was translated from an unfinished journal entry from a man with a name unknown in Dubai, India. His body is missing, and the house in which he was resident was seemingly burned to the ground. My name is Charlie. For about 5 years now, I've been living alone with my daughter, Rebecca. Rebecca is a very shy girl and doesn't feel comfortable around other kids in the neighborhood. So, when I overheard her having a conversation with someone in the backyard, I was very excited that maybe she had found a new friend. I dashed outside to meet the new boy or girl. But when I got there, all I found was Rebecca sitting in the yard, holding a lit match. She exclaimed, "Daddy, Daddy, I met this new boy. He said his name was Ricky, and he gave me this." She held up the match and waved it about. I rushed over and snatched it out of her hands and blew it out. When I asked her to describe this Ricky, she said he was tall, pale, had a big smile, and most disturbing of all, had black eyes. I knew this had to be a figment of her imagination. But that was impossible. How did she get the match, let alone having it lit? And I swear, in the back of my mind I heard a faint, high-pitched whispering, "I will make her burn." I'm not one to have nightmares. I probably had a total of 7 to 8 that I remember in my entire life. But this one was by far the worst. I was walking up my front stoop when I smelled what seemed to be smoke, almost as if something was burning. I opened the door to be greeted by a rush of heat and light. I was forced backwards, stumbling to regain my footing. When my eyes were back in focus with the fire, I could barely make out the silhouette of a tall, thin man putting his hand on a little girl's shoulder. It took me too long to realize the girl was my Rebecca. I lunged forward just in time to see the man covering the girl's face and disappearing into flames. The last thing I heard under Rebecca's screaming was a faint voice saying, "I burn." I jolted awake, rushed into Rebecca's room and called her name. She woke up. I ran over and gave her a huge hug. "Daddy, just a bad dream," I said. "It's all okay." I looked behind her, and out of the corner of my eye I thought I saw a man in the corner. I darted my head this way and that, trying to see him again. But he was gone. I stayed with Rebecca that morning until I had to leave for work. I kissed her goodbye and reminded her of her bus time. That day, at work, I got a call. It was the principal of Rebecca's school. "Hello, Mr. Davids," he said. "I'm calling to get clarification on the absence of your daughter, Rebecca Davids. Is she staying home today? I didn't get a notice." Hello, Principal Stewart. I didn't know that Rebecca was not at school. She must have missed her bus. I'll get home and make sure." The conversation lasted for about 2 more minutes and ended with a "Thank you, Mr. Davids." I hung up the phone and dashed out of the office. I knew Rebecca had missed the bus. She never missed the bus. I knew something terrible had just happened. I knew it. I ran up the stoop and bashed down the front door to be greeted by none other than my daughter. She stood there with a worried face. "What's wrong, Daddy?" she asked. Nothing, sweetheart. I just wanted to know why you weren't at school today. Why didn't you call me? I don't know the office number, Daddy, but it's okay. I just stayed at home and drew a picture, she explained. I staggered over to the table to find a drawing of a fire. It was what seemed to be endless flames eventually turning to darkness. I turned back to my daughter, but she wasn't there anymore. In her place stood a tall, pale man in all black. He had long, mangled fingernails and matted black hair, but I couldn't stand the sight of his face. His face was taken up mostly by a huge, crooked smile, literally ear to ear, filled with sharp, black teeth. The most horrifying part was his deep, dull black eyes filled with evil nothingness. I screamed in horror as the walls around me disintegrated into rubble, and the room filled with bright flames. The creature then started cackling. It grabbed me by the neck and threw me into the fire. The last thing I heard before the flames engulfed me was the thing whispering in my ear, "Ricky Burns."